The actors legit think that they're the characters they play. They think they're superheroes. They're gods.
Making the best films right now.
Christopher Nolan, without a doubt. Hollywood doesn't let us have the characters. They're always making it clear, these aren't yours, they belong to us, they belong to something else. That people love the movies without the agendas.
Yeah.
I mean, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, so it's gonna be successful no matter what. But another thing is there was no agenda in that last film.
Within the movie industry, what do you think is the biggest problem right now?
We have a wrong idea of what it means to push the boundary in art.
It's the one that starts the podcast. Everyone hears.
yeah. Acts like they have something to say. I think that you were probably eye candy in that. For sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Light the World podcast. I'm your host, LT World. If you're new to the podcast, what I do on this channel is just I check out culture, politics, and look at different issues just going on in the world and try to look at them from both sides and see which arguments make the most sense. If you want to follow along, you can just subscribe or follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter and check out my website, ltworld.info. But today is not about me. It is about my friend here, Vanya. Vanya, please say hello.
Hello, my name is Vanya Krapitsky.
So Vanya, I brought you here today to talk about movies because you yourself do movie production.
Yeah.
What's your production called again?
Recognized Productions.
Recognized Productions.
Yes, sir.
Would you like just to tell us more about it and more about what you do?
I would love to.
Let's go.
I would love to, Dylan. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I love what you're doing. So basically, my brother and I started a company called Recognized Productions. We were passionate about storytelling from a very young age. We were passionate. Well, first, we loved reading stories. We loved consuming stories at a very young age and stuff like that. And so we would start off by telling stories with puppets or stuffed animals and stuff like that. And then we got introduced by a good friend of ours, Ben. We got introduced to film, and he would just let us come to his house, and we would just sit and watch him edit, and just gotten absolutely engrossed and just taken by it. And we would, my dad didn't really trust us with his handy cam quite yet. So what we did was we took our Zoom, like what you use for the Zoom that you sit on top of your computer, and we used that, and we used just a basic editing program, and we did little things like that. And then our parents saw that we loved it, and one thing led to the next. We started doing it. We also did theater, so I had good connections with people, with actors and other directors, and so I got experience with how to actually act and how to organize things, because there's so much that goes into theater and film.
Yeah.
So much. It's more than just the actors who are on stage. And so I learned about that, and that was very crucial in our growth. And so we're still learning. We are very young. But we're having so much fun with it.
Yeah.
And we just got to finally premiere a little Raven and the Wolf, which people seem to like. And so it was a lot of fun.
I was there for the showing.
You
I
were?
thought it was really cool. Thought it was really good.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. And so we did that, and people seemed to really like it, and it was amazing because it was done by. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
People didn't know anything really about us. And we had a pretty good turnout. People, and people liked it, and people walked up to, they're like, "Hey, I do this. I do stuff with wood carpentry. So if you need help with that." And it's amazing how film can do that and bring people together. But that's a very general.
You also managed to bring someone from Washington to do music for you.
Which we're going to be working with more in the future. The governors, they were amazing. Michael is an amazing brother from a different mother.
Yeah.
And he came in and he was able to sing, do a live performance for us. Yeah. And we were able to announce our partnership with them for our next upcoming project, which is going to be down the line, but slowly working towards that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what's kind of like the future dream then of Recognized Productions? If you give me kind of like a vision statement almost, I don't know.
Yeah. The purpose of Recognized Productions is we're focusing on doing narrative storytelling. We don't do ads.
Yeah.
We don't do that stuff. We're here to tell stories, whether that's through short films. And something that we're considering down the line is doing even audio dramas.
Yeah.
All kinds of great stuff. But our vision is to tell thought-provoking, intelligent, and very without agenda, and and we do come from it from a more conservative, more Christian sort of approach. So we don't do any projects that cause us to compromise our beliefs and everything like that. So we're very we're family oriented, but not all our films are going to be family friendly. But that we're focused on not having to. Jeremy Boarding with the Daily Wire, he said it really well, that he's like a lot of times film nowadays they have the sucker punch out of nowhere of like you're watching a movie and they just ruin the character with something out of nowhere.
There's just some weird montage and then there's like a bunch of just weird things happening. Like the transgender guy just pops out.
Exactly,
of nowhere. Like, oh, okay.
Exactly, and it's just a way of saying that. I love how Jeremy Boring saying he's like the characters don't belong to the audience.
Yeah,
they're trying to make it clear, which is very annoying. Is because we're very focused on telling stories that the audience can love and relate with, and that they can recognize themselves in, and that's sort of the purpose. Is my brother actually had came up with the name. He had a little art page that he was doing, and I love the name, and I asked if we could use it. And so that's what we want people to do. We want people to recognize themselves. And we're focused here in Lancaster. So as of right now, we're focused on working with people here in Lancaster, the film, the actors, the people here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Because there's so much talent here. People don't expect that. They're like, oh, Amish country and stuff. There's a lot of like theater. Yeah. Surprisingly, whether that's Sign Sound, Servant Stage, Kavad, all these amazing things. But yeah, we want to give people an opportunity to get involved in film because film is amazing. It can bring people of all walks of life, and yeah.
I mean, it's also a pretty nice location if you think about it, because like DC, Philadelphia, Baltimore, even if like you want to go to the big cities like New York, they're all like in a couple hours drive. So like it's not like you're that far from the cities. So
that's exactly
pretty nice
right.
location.
That's exactly right. And I mean, it's also beautiful, and I haven't had too many problems yet. I'm sure I will down the line, but I haven't had really any problems with filming here. We did a period piece in Pennsylvania, which was a nightmare, but we kind of pulled it off. So
I mean, I remember helping you do that concept film where we did the fight scene in the barn.
That's right, you were in our film.
Dude, I bruised my elbow after that.
I'm really sorry. I wish we had a bigger budget to have a stunt double for you.
I was the stunt double.
You were the stunt double, exactly, yeah.
But no, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. If you guys, hopefully when we release it publicly for everybody, you'll get to see him. He's a henchman, a beefy henchman. Who gets.
I had to laugh when I watched the premiere because like there's that one scene where I'm like
you're flexing.
My neck looks like it's scrunched up or something.
Yeah,
I'm just like, what the world am I doing?
Yep. Hey, listen, I think that you were probably the eye candy in that film for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am still single, but no. But I mean, let's jump into the topic of movies because like we brought that up earlier about like don't have an agenda.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Like within the movie industry, what do you think is the biggest problem right now? And what would you like to see change?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems in the film industry is that we think we have a wrong idea of what it means to push the boundary.
Okay.
In art, and we have a wrong idea of that, and so because of that, we lose audiences. I think it was Kubrick who had like that saying that if you can think it, or if you can like think of it, or something like that, you can film it. And just because you can think it doesn't mean you can film it. But there's something to that. Yeah. That you can still be creative, and that's one of the problems. Is not the agenda, but like that is one of the problems. Is that like I feel that I'm like how to be original because there's so much. Yeah. There's so much content. There's so much content out there. I have a specific thing that I was gonna say. I forget what it was. Yeah, if it can be written or thought, it can be filmed. That's what it was. Yeah. And I just love that. But there's so much content out there. It's hard to be original. But on the other hand, human beings are so complex, and it's almost you're almost oversimplifying it, and you're doing a disservice when you're acting like, oh, I can't do any more. But it is difficult, and but I think that we should still fight for that. And what else? Yeah, there's a lot. I think. Oh, another thing is it's especially with Hollywood, it's hard for new actors to sort of break into it. Yeah. Because especially for a Hollywood producer, because you're trying to make money, right? I mean, so if you have the choice, Leonardo DiCaprio or some actor, and maybe that actor might do a better job, but they'll still go with the bigger name.
But I mean, eventually Leonardo DiCaprio grows old and dies, so you need to bring in new people.
Exactly.
So that's why you got like your Tom Hollands and Zendayas, which I'm personally tired of seeing on Instagram. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're annoying the crap out of me. But that's besides the point. That's a side issue.
I get that. No, I get that. And back to what I said about the whole thing of like Hollywood doesn't let us have the characters.
Yeah.
They're always making it clear these aren't yours. They belong to us. They belong to something else. But the frustrating part is they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
It's showing that people love the movies without the agendas.
Yeah.
I mean, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, so it's gonna be successful no matter what. But another thing is there was no agenda in that last film.
Yeah.
You may think Tom Holland's annoying, but that last film was pretty phenomenal.
I mean,
it was awesome.
I didn't see the last Spider-Man, sadly. I heard it was really good. I want to go see it, but I haven't seen it yet.
I won't spoil it.
But I did hear about like the Eternals, for instance, and what was the other one? I forget what the other one was, but I know Eternals specifically really bombed. And I heard from a lot of people, it's like it's very woke. They're trying to really push a lot of things on people.
No, Eternals was trash. Even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, just because you're introducing a whole like where were you guys? It's the question. Marvel's going to keep running into this, but where were you during Thanos' snap? Where we oh, well, we don't get involved in the things of human beings. And yet the whole movie is them getting involved in humanity. So Eternals from a storytelling perspective is stupid, and from an agenda, everything about it.
Yeah.
Everything about it.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that I'm growing more and more tired of too, is that I think when you're going back to the idea about being original, I think a lot of times when producers make a movie, they think being original is pushing an idea that's countercultural. So like they're like, well, for instance, let's just say drag queens are countercultural of the day.
Right.
We're gonna make sure we have a drag queen scene in there.
Kind of. Yeah, I know. No, I know what you mean. And it's at this point. We're at the point right now where conservatives are actually the countercultural.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
They're like, oh yeah, you can push the bounds as long as you're not pushing those bounds. Because right now, bringing back the old values is pushing the boundaries in a way.
Yeah.
And it's like you can do that, and that's where I have the problem with.
Well, I mean, no one wants to be the guy. I'm saying this like, as if the culture, but like, no one wants to be the guy who's like, oh, I like the old time stuff. Let's go back to the 1950s. Like, no one wants to be that guy in the film industry specifically.
There is a part of that, yeah.
So like, everyone wants to be new. Everyone wants to be avant-garde or something.
Yeah.
Like they want to push.
Yeah.
But what would you define then as pushing the boundaries, or what would you define as being original? Like, as you said, it's hard with all this content out there.
Yeah. What I would define as original is, especially, there's always going to be similarities with other art pieces. If I make a film, I can normally be like, oh, this can be compared to this film, and you give people an image. Oh, okay, I that makes sense.
Yeah.
What makes it original is one of the ways you would do it is I'm still new to this whole game. I just make it clear I don't know anything, but the little bits that I have known is that every person is different and unique.
Yeah.
Every single person. And so as a film director, you have to be you have to tell your own story and stuff like that. So if you're focused on telling your own story, it's going to be unique.
Yeah.
It's going to be unique because you have a unique perspective no matter what to bring in.
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I think of the analogy of like snowflakes, for instance. Like a lot of snowflakes look very similar, but if you go up closer to them, they're all a little bit different.
Yep.
That's kind of like storytelling
exactly
or
right.
anything. Like
Exactly
they all
right.
follow a basic plot. There's a conflict, there's a resolution, there's a conclusion.
Yep.
But like, even though they have a lot of similarities, the style and the characters and everything's just a little bit different that you're like, invested.
Exactly. And the funniest part about these new films, the ones that are very agenda driven, those films are not going to be remembered, unfortunately, down the line. They're not memorable.
I don't know if that's unfortunate. I think that's pretty fortunate.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate because it's a waste of money and time and resources.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I would love to see changed is Hollywood, the actors, they legit think that they're the characters they play. They think they're superheroes. They're gods. They think that. They think that, and it's like, no, you're actual human beings.
I do like the point that I hear some people make, like, when's the last time you've seen a conservative make it big time in Hollywood? Or when's the last time you've seen a film that doesn't push some sort of liberal agenda?
Openly conservative. Because there are some actors who are like kind of secretly like the Mel Gibson sort of.
Yeah.
Or the people that kind of like turn conservative down the line. Yeah. And they get canceled instantly.
I mean, is that something that you're thinking of as like a production company about cancel culture? Like, do you think that will be a problem down the road if you would grow?
Of course it will. Yeah, it definitely will. And that's why I want to be more of a studio. That's my dream. Is I want to be the ones with providing the money, as opposed to having to go to other people. Because the second you rely on other people for finances, you lose the power, and you have to kind of comply in a sense.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to do that.
I mean, you have kind of like that GoFundMe thing where, like,
Yeah.
for instance, I think it was a trucker convoy where, like, the money got shut down or whatever, or they shut down the GoFundMe for the trucker convoy in Canada.
Yeah,
And
right,
then
right,
stuff like that, like,
right.
all that crap went down. So, like, obviously, if they're able to do something like that and get away with it, why can't Patreon, for instance, just shut down someone's subscription platform because they don't agree with their political beliefs?
Absolutely. And I don't want to. And that's another thing. Daily Wire, there's such a maverick, there's such a trailblazer in what they're doing. So I'm very inspired by that. But like what they're saying is, like, we're not gonna necessarily do like, we're not gonna tell Bible stories necessarily. But it's and that's what I want to do too. Is I don't want to do that, but because I want to cause people to think.
Yeah.
And I want people to be inspired because that's what film is about. Film isn't about telling you how you should live. It's helping you think a little differently. It's to be walk away inspired. Like, I know for me, movies like The Darkest Hour, which I just rewatched recently, and it's just playing through my head. It's so amazing. Like, Churchill was such a great guy. He was so inspirational. I mean, he was a flawed human being, which is another one of his appeals, because he was so brash and he was so
Unlike those unflawed human beings.
yeah. Oh, no, right. But he was so he was good with words, but he was also politically incorrect too. Like, he said some very rough stuff.
Yeah.
And the way he acted, which was really cool. And that's another thing I wish we would do more of, is telling the stories of character. Like, that's what I liked about Hacksaw Ridge. Was people didn't really know much about the guy until they saw that movie.
Yeah.
And telling more stories like that. That's what I would love to see.
And telling the stories as they were.
Exactly.
Like, not
Oh, my
changing
word.
them to
Yeah.
fit your whatever perspective you have.
Yeah, and I mean another like, film does. There was one saying about some director, and he said that film is life, but with all the dull bits cut out.
I mean,
You know what I mean? So, like, the reason why I'm saying that is, it's like, don't be scared to tell the story how it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to be like, you don't need to tell every nitty-gritty detail.
Yeah.
But you can still. People are interesting, and that's another thing we're very focused on.
I've heard
human beings are so interesting.
I heard the saying before, like, truth is more interesting than fantasy sometimes. Like, it gets crazier than that. Like, for instance, right now, I'm studying, like,
that's crazy.
listening to some podcasts about cults.
Oh,
Dude,
okay.
when you start going into that world and realize all these things were real and that these people were brainwashed, basically, like, you're like, man, that happened in reality. Yet we think sometimes we have to create a fictional story to really get the crazy stuff. Like, no, man. Like, truth and reality can really be just as crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and in general, like, I want to always come and I always want to approach my films and the topics that I cover from a perspective of saying I don't know everything, because the second you act like you know something, you lose it. You lose that wonder and that excitement.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Like, J.I. Packer, the book that I'm reading, he defined maturity as a compound of wisdom, goodwill, resilience, and creativity. Those four things. And as I mature as a person and my films get better and the stuff I do gets better, I want those four things to grow.
Yeah.
I want my wisdom to get better, and I want that to be shown in my films. I want my creativity, absolutely. I've never thought of, before I read that book, I never thought of creativity as part of maturity, but it is.
I guess. I mean, I never thought about it that way either.
It's being able to find new solutions and not being able to see things one way.
Yeah.
Because we think of maturity as like having a lot of like just practical knowledge or stuff like that,
Yeah.
life experiences. No, you can be a mature person at a younger age.
And I think a culture that gets caught in a certain intellectual rut eventually has a giant swinging motion. So, like, you see that throughout history where, like, you know, you have a dictatorship and then there's a revolution because everyone gets tired with that. But then you see democracy for a while, then it goes back to dictatorship, or the cultural, like, you have the Enlightenment, and then you have, like, the modern period, the postmodern period. And, like, people just get tired of something and then they move, they shift.
Yeah. And back to, like, our whole controversial thing. Like, I'm not gonna be out here making blatant political stuff like that. But on the other hand, it will be controversial because I'll be doing films that Hollywood isn't doing anymore.
Yeah.
And so I want to cause people to think. I want people, like, kind of like philosophers. Philosophers are able to think about very complex and deep things.
Yeah.
And then compress it all into very, like, quotes. And so, like, we think of those quotes, but there's, like, it's like an onion. There's, like, so many levels to that, and that's what I want my films to be like. I want there to be level, the reason, like a character, we relate with a character, like, oh, that character's so amazing. But it's amazing because the writer thought about it.
Yeah.
He thought about everything about it. You don't need to, I mean, obviously, back to you don't need to think about the nitty gritty, like how he drinks coffee, because some actors do that. You know, the method actors, they'll think
Yeah.
like, oh, how would he sit and stuff like that. That doesn't matter. It's about the personality and how he would act in this situation or whatever. And that's how it shows. Even Disney films are like that. Jordan Peterson talks about Beauty and the Beast, and I never thought about it, but Beauty and the Beast is how relationships are.
Okay.
So that's like a guy before he meets a girl. He's kind of an animal. He's kind of all over the place. He's very selfish. He's very, you know what I mean, stuck in his own ways. Until Beauty, that's literally her name, Beauty.
Yeah.
Something that a characteristic of a woman. She comes in and she tames him basically, and he turns into this man. And I never thought about that, and it's crazy. And I looked it up, and that was basically the purpose behind it. But every Disney film is like that. Is when you go deeper, and it can't be just surface level stupid.
Do you think they're still making that type of deeper level meaning in Disney? I mean, when I watched Frozen, I don't necessarily. There's meaning, but I don't know if I necessarily always agree with it either.
That's a very surface level kind of meaning. It's a very that one. Frozen was it was good because it was like, oh, you know, family and love can melt a frozen heart.
Yeah.
It was very. I mean, it was there. I have yet to watch Encanto, but it sounded like Encanto, whatever you say.
Yeah.
It sounded like Encanto had a pretty cool meaning behind it. I have yet to watch it, but from what my family told me, is pretty cool. But no, for the most part, no.
Who do you think right now is making the best films right now, in your opinion?
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan?
Yeah.
What's some of his most recent movies? I'm not.
He just came out with Tenet, but I mean, he's the Dark Knight trilogy.
Okay.
He's Inception, Interstellar. That's not Christopher Nolan without a doubt. Spielberg is definitely somebody that is up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tarantino isn't really doing anything anymore, but he's pretty good too.
Okay.
But there's a few.
And then going back to like recognized production and stuff.
Yeah.
What are your favorite type of genres, or what genres would you want to get into first at least?
Such a good question.
So, what type of movies are your favorite to make?
Growing up, my brother and I did a lot of action stuff because action stuff is so easy to do.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a shaky like the way you film action. Basically, anyone can do it. It's really easy, and it's not very reliant on audio, and it's a very cheap thrill.
Yeah.
So I love action. I'm starting to kind of branch away from that. Our next big project, we're working on a smaller project, but our next big project is more of like a tragic romantic comedy,
okay,
which is different because people haven't seen that from me.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm looking forward to doing that sort of stuff.
Tragic romantic is heavily reliant on storytelling, because if you mess up the characters and mess up the tension between those characters, you're screwed. So has that been like a stretching thing for you, working on your writing?
Well,
in that
I
regard?
love and the punch, and it's hard for me to describe it to other people because from a plot, it's a very the plot. I'm putting complex characters into day-to-day life, basically.
Okay.
I want it to be realistic, but there's some over-the-top things happen.
Yeah.
But I'm putting complex characters in it. And it's hard to explain that, and until people see it, see the script, or the trailer or whatever, they won't understand it. And unfortunately, that's how I am. Is like I have these like images in my head, sometimes too much, and I have people around me who bring me back down to earth in some ways. But and so I'm taking these complex characters, and that's where the punch is going to come in. And so the hard part is making it interesting and not unrealistic, because especially nowadays, in order to make a complex character, you make them gay, or they have a drug problem, or they're alcoholics. You know what I mean?
Or if you're Disney, you just get rid of one of the parents in your.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why, and that's another reason why I love the old Disney movies, because they didn't really rely on that.
Yeah.
You know, but so yeah, I want to get into that. I love thrillers, so I'm thinking about doing something like that. But I'm a very dialogue driven person.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say my favorite genres is action, historical fiction, and psychological thriller.
Okay.
I can't narrow it down to one. That was a mean question.
So, are you also currently working on the script then still? Is that still where you're at in the process of your next project?
We're writing the music and the script for that. We're working on casting. We have some of the cast already more or less willing to do it. That's another reason why we're holding up on releasing the Raven and the Wolf, because we want to be able to have tell more about our future projects.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, we're working with the governors, writing the music for that, and we're doing projects in the meantime.
Okay.
We're doing a short film. We're converting a short story written by somebody here in Lancaster.
Nice.
Her days as being a old order Mennonite, and
Nice.
it's a little short story. She has a little children's series, and she hired us to turn it into a book.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
a film, and so I'm excited about that. And I really love working with her, Elva Hurst. Shout out. She probably won't watch this, but she's a sweet lady. So yeah, we're working on that. We're working with some companies, but right now we're trying to figure out a way to fund everything.
Yeah.
So
I guess, do you enjoy that side of things though, like the business side of things, like learning how to fund, learning how to, because like obviously you're a creative person.
Yeah.
You probably definitely love the writing part and the creative part, but the business end, how's that going, or like, what do you?
I didn't think I would enjoy. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did.
Okay.
As I do. I mean, I do, because right now I don't really have anybody else to rely on with the business, so I have no choice to do it. And it's more rewarding than I thought, especially because it's the end goal is doing what I love, and I do like that, and I've learned a ton, and I'm somebody that, and this is something that is going to be in the next film. To give a little bit of context, it's telling about how like a method actor.
Okay.
How a method actor approaches his acting. He tries to become the person. Heath Ledger had this thing with the Joker.
Yeah.
The most obvious example that people know. But this is telling about a method writer, and he has this sort of approach to life and everything like that. It's a little bit based around me because that's how I oftentimes I forget who it was, but some director said that he likes to write scripts when he's mad, when he's sad, and when he's angry. No, I think it was an actor. He's like, I like to read through scripts when I'm mad, sad, and
Happy.
happy. There, I said mad and angry.
I
Mad,
was
sad,
just
and
like-
happy.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think that's something that I do. But the frustrating parts when I had with business, I would be like, oh, it's so frustrating. Okay, this is a good time to write that one scene. So I'll focus on writing that scene. And so all that to say is that business has been good, and I've learned a lot from it, and I've grown as a person.
Yeah.
God has used it to humble me, and show me how little I know about it.
Yeah.
And I have people in my life who give me good advice with that. And other business owners, local business owners, have been able to give me good advice.
Okay.
That stuff.
And I guess you're going down. It sounds like you're not going down a subscription route. Then you're going down. I'm choosing a different path. Then I suppose.
I don't know yet
Yeah.
with that part. I don't know. I think that subscription, I would need more people. I would need more help with that. Right now, I think that focusing on the audience we have in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
and YouTube and online, I think that's the way we're going to go for now.
Is that where you're going to release Raven and the Wolf as well?
Yeah, I
On
think
YouTube?
we're actually going to probably release on Vimeo.
Ah, okay.
At least the premiere of it. Vimeo is very good for hosting
Okay.
premieres.
Yeah. I know. I personally never dealt much with Vimeo, so I don't know too much about it. But
Yeah, I haven't up until now. I haven't either, and it's pretty good. A lot of short film producers will put stuff on there, and so they're pretty good. But
is that also where you're going to put your short film when you finish up doing that, or you don't know?
that
yet?
is actually more up to her, because she's going to be playing that that's going to be for tourists, and she's actually going to sell DVDs,
Oh.
which I thought was really
Are you
interesting.
going to be the ones burning the DVDs? Or?
No, I'm staying away from that. I'm
You
saying
can
that
start a
I'm
whole-
too young.
You start a whole Breaking Amish show with this. Man.
Right. Well, and yeah, and she has a whole book series, and she's already talking about doing. We're not even done with this one. She's already talking about doing the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, we're still praying. We're still thinking about how distribution works, and we want to. But I want to make sure that our content is good. I want
Yeah.
to provide excellence in what we do, and so that when people do get invested in us, because we can't crank out what Netflix and Amazon and all these people are doing at HBO.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're nowhere near that level. But getting to do the little things and bring, because film, if done right, it's a good way of escape.
Yeah.
It's a good way, and it brings families together.
Yeah.
I know
I mean, depending on the film, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. Well, and some films the purpose is to shake up, and to cause people to think and stuff like that. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is kind of like my own little tangent because, like, for instance, I do writing, obviously, and there's some things I think this tendency within our Christian circles to think that Christian equates to children or family friendly, which I don't necessarily think that always has to be the case. I don't know what your perspective is on that, but I think that we can be able to make content that's within our moral views or moral standing.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily I would want my 12-year-old or my 10-year-old to watch per se or read or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know what your view is on that.
I thought that The Prince of Egypt was very interesting. That was, I think, one of the few films that was a children's film, but still handled darker topics well. Because they had the captivity of Israel was not a pretty time, and it wasn't none of that was nice. But I think it was handled very well. Beautiful I mean, the music and I mean the cast is phenomenal. And like, you know, Val Kilmer and Ralph, however you pronounce his last name, Phineas or something like that. But I mean, amazing cast and that
was animated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such an impact on me when I was a kid. Animated movies had a big Lion King was huge. Prince of Egypt was big. You know, Up. Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet. Have you read the book, Treasure Island?
No, man.
Dude, that one, that's a classic. You got to read that one.
Who's that by again?
Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. No, I haven't read it, but
I think
I've
it's
heard
Robert
of it.
Louis Stevenson. It better be.
Is that the same
Whatever.
guy who wrote Journey to the Center of the Earth and
Yeah.
those books?
Let me double check. I think so.
Yeah, because I haven't read any of those books, but I've seen the one movie at least, like Journey to the Center of Earth or whatever.
I think that reading Treasure Planet as a little boy is something. No, I think you're thinking of somebody else with the Journey to the Center of the Earth. He wrote Treasure Island, Kidnapped. I read that. I did not read A Child's Garden of Verses. What is that? But yeah, no. But Journey to the Center of the Earth was somebody else.
Yeah.
Wasn't Rudyard Kipling?
I mean, I have no idea.
Journey
I don't know.
to the Center of the Earth. Jules Verne.
Jules
who
Verne.
Yeah.
That's who it was. All right, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But no. Yeah. So, but Robert Louis. But I mean, then again, C.S. Lewis said that like, if you can't read a kid's book when you're an adult, it's not worth it, or something like that. It's a terrible kid's book.
Interesting.
And I thought that was so interesting.
What about like the what's that, Dr. Seuss? What about those type of books? Does that
I still get entertained by them.
Fair
But
enough.
I'm not an adult yet though. Although I hate the word teenager. I hate it.
Why?
Well, because there's a whole when somebody says the word teenager, you instantly get an image in your mind, and
Pimples.
it's not good. Yeah, pimples or you know what I mean, cracking voice or being stupid,
So everything that
doing
goes
dumb
along
decisions.
everything that goes with having hormones and
And not just hormones. Like you make immaturity.
yeah.
Okay, immaturity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, I don't necessarily go to the physical side of it.
Interesting.
Because adults have, you know, hormone difficulties and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, depending on what age you're at.
Of course, but it's for me, it's more the thing. So I prefer young adult, and because it's a mindset, like not because, and it even says in the Bible, don't let anyone despise your youth.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that Recognized Productions is kind of big on too.
Yeah.
Is people of all walks of life and age.
Yeah. And I think that's another reason why, like, for instance, in the culture when you were started working as a kid, now obviously there was a lot of problems also in those type of cultures and how they treated children to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But like it did to a certain extent for some sort of maturity. But now we have a culture where it's like, you're just a kid, and once you turn 18, now you need to start acting more serious. Or once you graduate from college, now you have to be an adult. And I think that cultivates a culture of like lack of maturity.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a problem within our
Oh no,
current
absolutely,
standing.
absolutely, and I think that that's what my parents really were focused on. And that's another thing I should give credit to. My parents were huge in everything that I do. They still are, but something they were very focused on was, you know, is act how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing. So it's like if as a Christian, my dad told us, he's like, we don't need you. We're not going to force you to say that you're Christian or to pray the prayer. But if you say you're a Christian, we expect you to act like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, you know, and so that was something that was really big. And so if you wanted more responsibility, you would act. And my parents did and still do a very good job of rewarding that. You know what I mean? They don't just say, oh, if you're responsible with this, then we'll reward you. They actually do it.
And you're 18, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of time, like, that's impressive to me because, like, I know there's not a lot of, going to use the word, teenagers out there who do actually do what you do. Like,
And you can use the word because unfortunately it's a good description.
yeah.
Unfortunately. But I just hate it because I like to think that I'm trying to be better.
Yeah. But, like, within your age group, there's not a lot of people doing what you're doing where they're, like, they try to start their whole production or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and honestly, growing up in high school when I was your age and stuff and all that, it was like video games and sports was primarily what people focused on. And they're like,
Yeah.
I'll worry about my future once I go to college.
Well, you don't need to start a business to start acting like an adult.
Yeah.
Because I'm still very mature in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to say that. I'm very undisciplined in some areas, and I don't always focus the way I should. But you can be a mature person where you are. You can still play the video games and stuff like that. I mean, Jordan Peterson would say just responsibility. It's what it all boils down to, especially for males.
Yeah.
Is taking on responsibility, and that's something that I'm learning to do.
Character development, basically.
Yeah.
Like when you're doing anything, being able to understand your priorities and being able to then act in those priorities. So, like, for instance, if let's just say we're doing recreational things. When I'm doing these recreational things, I can have fun, I can mess around, but at the end of the day, remembering God's more important, remembering that people are more important, and how I behave will impact both of those things.
And what's crazy is, like, we think that by serving God and focusing on family, we're going to lose something. And I'm learning that. Like, the few times where I have put others before me have actually benefited me in the long term. I become a lot more patient, and I'm happier. Because, I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to be happy. Well, I mean, to serve, as a Christian, is to serve God. But even serving God, that's where the happiness, and that also applies to serving God. We think that we're going to be losing something by serving the church or serving something like that. But no, in reality, you will receive blessing by doing so.
Talking about just, like, I guess, serving God or whatever, let's taking this back to, like, the film industry, Christian films, notorious for being bad.
Man.
Are you, with Recognized Productions, you said you're obviously not like, you're necessarily going to push the agenda, but I assume you might make some, like, let's just say you'll make a movie about the story of Joseph or David.
Of
or
course.
Like,
yeah, we will.
How can we make Christian movies better? How can we make Christian movies great again?
This is an ongoing conversation with my team.
Yeah.
We have this ongoing conversation is because there is a stigma.
Yeah.
There is, unfortunately. One of the things is you got to commit to what you're doing. You got to you got to commit to what you're doing. Like The Chosen, right? They committed. They were like, we're telling Bible stories and we're telling it the way it should, you know what I mean? And boom, it's amazing. And they did it well too, which is nice because they have good actors and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I have this problem with Christians. They're like, oh, the acting was so cheesy. I mean, yes, but also the writing was kind of bad, and also the directing kind of sucked and stuff like that. So it's not always the actors.
But people don't think about that because all they see is the actors.
Yeah. Which is another reason why we did the premiere, is because we could have released on YouTube, but I wanted people to see the people behind it, and they have a better understanding. Because it was a very cheap. We had $2,000 budget. That's it. And so if people just saw that, they'd be like, oh, that was a crappy film. But instead, they got to see the people behind it.
Like, that's the thing, though, too, with Christian movies. I hear oftentimes people blame it on the budget. Like, oh, well, Christian movies just don't have enough money, so that's why they're not as good. But money does nothing to do with storytelling. No. Like, if you're a good storyteller, you might not have the top of the equipment or the best photo shots, but you'll definitely have a great story, and I will be,
of course,
still brought into it.
And the funniest part about it is when you have a small budget, you're forced to be creative. And super unique and special things happen.
Exactly.
It's pretty awesome. But yeah, what can be done better is you have to commit to a thing, to what you're doing, because a lot of Christian films they'll tell a Christian story, but they'll try to do it in a secularly appealing way. Yeah. Which then you lose everybody. You lose the secular side and you lose Christians.
Or they become just like Hollywood, where they try to get too pushy. Where they're like, they have that moment where the person. Okay, let's just take God's Not Dead as an example. The atheist gets hit at the end by the car. He's on the road dying, and then they're like, oh, he needs to get saved before he dies. Yeah. I felt like that was very pushed. I don't know.
I need to of course. I need to rewatch the first God's Not Dead, but the most recent one I watched was the third one. I don't even remember this. Was it the third one? Whichever one was the last one with the lawyer. Yeah. No, it was the second one. Whichever one was with the lawyer. Mm-hmm. I actually liked his acting. But and something that Ben, one of my producers, he brought up was really awesome, was that the non-Christians in the Christian films are painted in such an evil way. and so unrealistic.
Yeah.
And that's another problem, and that goes back to making believable characters.
Or even go the opposite direction where the Christians are made out to be these perfect,
Exactly.
untouchable
Oh yeah,
human
yeah, yeah. Of
beings.
course, of course.
We won't, like, I think that's another thing I find issue sometimes with our Christian media or entertainment as a general whole, is that we create these Christian characters as if they're perfect and their greatest trouble is the fact that their son's rebellious. Like, I don't see a film where we have an actual, like, you know, guy trying to follow Christ who's, I don't know, battling with an addiction.
Which is then our next film is
Or
going to
something
be
like
like
that.
that. Our next
So-
film is going to be like that.
That's good to hear because for instance, so I talk to a lot of guys, and obviously
Yes.
a big problem in our culture is pornography. A big problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Christian men out there. I mean, if you look at statistics, like a large majority in the church, especially, who struggle with addiction to pornography.
Yes.
But yet in our Christian films, like, we will never even touch that topic, or we won't even touch that in our entertainment at all, talking about the sexual problems within the church specifically, which is a shame because, like, how can we change culture if we don't address the problems of the culture? I don't know.
Yes.
That's just me.
No, absolutely. And the thing with pornography is we're so, and with film is so powerful and it's so visually there, and it plugs into things in our brains so well. And again, being able to take back a little bit of it in our own little way with little recognized productions in little Lancaster County, getting to take that a little bit of that back is so special and just awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And in movie making, so, like, obviously with your value system as being Christian and stuff, I'm assuming, like, sex scenes and stuff is kind of something you're going to be not doing. So
no,
obviously Hollywood obviously thinks that's necessary for love or whatever.
yeah.
What's the strategy on your end? Like, how do you create a meaningful love story through movie without throwing in that crap?
That's crazy. That's such a good question. The unfortunate thing with Hollywood is with the whole sex scenes and everything. Movies are a reflection of where we are as people.
Yeah.
And it's a legit thing that in relationships, that sex is something that is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And everything's based around it. So that is the difficulty that we're going to be running into. The way you do that is by showing the beauty of what love can be, because there is a yearning in people. I can tell, because people, like, they're not happy with if you associate sex with love. You're not happy, because that's not what love should all be about.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. And I think that if we take that risk of showing what love really is, about sacrifice and stuff like that, not only will we be holding onto our values, and I think, and our consciences will be good, but also I think people will like that, and I think that people will be inspired. I'm gonna say this right now. Our film has a very tragic ending.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be taking a look at how love is more than just an immediate thing. Love is something that has a lasting effect. Love is sacrificial.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to be inspired by that and moved by it. And I think that, unfortunately, we have a very low standard of love. We have such a low standard.
Yeah.
Like, I think having a standard, our standard is like, having somebody that's you know, attractive or whatever, or you know what I mean, that doesn't, you know, especially if girls with guys, like, you know what I mean, that he doesn't abuse me or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, like, a guy that truly is willing to sacrifice his time and he's willing to be a gentleman, basically. We have such a low standard for that. And I think that we want to lift that standard and encourage people to desire more out of their relationships.
I mean, the problem is that I think within secular culture, specifically Hollywood or whatever, romance and love have been equated as the same thing. Like, so, like, they're like, okay, romance is love. So these feelings that I get when I see a beautiful woman, that's love. No, that's romance. That's lust if you want to go down that route.
Yeah.
But that's not love. Love is, as you said, the commitment angle of it. Now, I'm not saying that romance is bad. Obviously, Song of Solomon's all about romance.
Yeah.
So, like, romance and sex is great.
That's rooted in the right things.
But it's rooted in covenant. It's rooted in marriage. So, like, all that stuff is great. Like, sex and romance is great if it's in covenant or within marriage. But we lose sight of that. We lose sight of that. We equate romance with love when love should be the root of romance in a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people will see, I hate to say simplicity, because in order for a human being to not care about themselves, it's so much. It's such a big thing. It's not as simple. Like, we're like, oh, it was such a simple, sweet thing. He held the door for her. No, I mean, a person won't naturally do that.
Yeah.
And he's holding that door open for her not to just get into bed with her, but because that's the right thing to do. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because even subconsciously,
Yeah.
we think about that. But yeah, and you bring it back, and also you make another way you do is you make good characters. You make characters that are very fun to watch and very relatable, but also that you can enjoy and you can own and you can have ownership of, and that you just love and adore, and you want them to succeed, and you want them to get, you want them to make it. And that's another way you make good romances. You make, because I mean, Romeo and Juliet, amazing characters. Trying to think of other examples.
just Shakespeare. Just quote Shakespeare.
Yeah, Shakespeare. Yeah. Back to Disney, Simba and Nala. That's another great one.
Simba and Nala.
Just her role of bringing him back and helping him become the man he wants to be. That he needs to be.
Interestingly enough, though, I think that's also another reason why within like the Hollywood film industry, why romance is also difficult, because they have to push also like the strong independent woman.
Yes.
This idea, so like chivalry sometimes within secular culture comes across as misogyny. So like holding the door open. Oh, I can hold my own door open. Or paying for the meal. Well, I can pay for the meal because I work full time as well.
Equality and all that.
So like,
or you split the bill.
Yeah. So I think that also plays a role into why love is portrayed the way it is sometimes as well.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Just a side note, I was visiting boys' college, and I sat in on a class of great books. I think it was great books too, with Dr. Flatt, and he said he brought up that he said that The Lion King is basically Hamlet.
Yep.
I was like, what?
I've heard that parallel before.
I was blown away with that. I was like, how have I not seen this before?
Yep.
But Hamlet is something that is really big in my life. There's one line in Hamlet where he says something like, "And all you watching pale and trembling speechless spectators of these acts, if I could tell you a thing or two if I had the time." And I'm like, and Dr. Flatt brought this out, and it was so true. He's like, Hamlet, you've had about 2 hours to talk about yourself, and you're saying you don't have the time. And as a film guy, or as a person who tells story, that moved me, because I feel that. I feel like I don't always have the time, and I want people to see stuff that inspire me and that moved me, and I want to share that with everybody. Not because I'm so amazing, but because I'm like, I have this amazing feeling that I got from this story, and I was inspired by it, and I want to share that with other people. And I think that that's the core of it, of what I want to do. And it was just amazing. He said, if I had the time, and I feel that too. It's not because I'm like amazingly complex, and all humans are like that. Even the most annoying, dull person that you could meet, if you really got to know them, you'd be blown away.
Yeah, and normally the people who we call boring or dull is because they just keep everything to themselves. So I think sometimes we mistake dull and boring for...
It's almost like the loud ones like us that are dull.
Yeah.
Like, you just talk about the same thing all the time.
It's the one that starts the podcast everyone hears.
yeah. Acts like they have something to say. Exactly, yeah.
But...
That's so true. Well, for me it's a little different. When I see a quiet person, I usually get intrigued by them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's a verse in the Bible that basically says that it's like, even a quiet man, even a stupid quiet man can be perceived as wise. Something like that. That was a butchering of the verse, but
the proverb is about the fool, and he says, even a foolish man is perceived as wise if he remains quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so,
that. So it's like that's how I actually view it.
That context is a little bit different though, because he's talking about the fact that like it's better for a fool to be silent. Because like if someone's an idiot and they remain silent,
I get that, but for me it's like the quiet. When I see a quiet person in the corner, he seems so interesting. Yeah. And so and I'm so like wow. And there's a reason why they're being quiet. And it might be that they're a foolish person and you need to be quiet. Maybe I should be quiet instead of doing a podcast. But it's like, but for me that's how I usually view it. And then if I get to know the person, I'm like, oh.
I mean, there's also going back to Proverbs. It says that the intentions of a man's heart is like deep waters, and a wise man will know how to draw it out. I feel more accomplished when I get to know an introvert than I do an extrovert. Like extrovert will tell you, once you get to know them pretty well, they'll tell you a lot about themselves.
They'll tell all the important stuff. They'll tell those 3 stories like right away, and then that's it. That's all there is to them.
Once you get to know once you like start working on the introvert and stuff, and then like after several months you build a relationship, then they open up to you a big story. You're like, man, I really hit it big.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I think that that analogy of deep pools of water is so awesome. And I think as people, when we read books and we educate ourselves, that water level
Yeah.
rises. I love how our pastor, he has this analogy that he got from seminary where he's like, his seminary professor told him that all your whole life is gonna be like a well. Like people are always gonna be drawing from it.
Yeah.
And right now, while you're in seminary, it feels like a fire hydrant. It's just blasting you, and you're getting all this theology and doctrine and expository preaching, and just all this stuff is just blasting you.
Yeah.
But for the rest of your life, people are just gonna be taking water out of it, and that's more of a discipleship, pastoral thing.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, as Christians, we have to, and that's another whole thing. That I think that even if you're not typically a leader in your life, you should still have the attributes of a leader.
Yeah.
And this is somewhat of a tangent, but it's like discipline, thinking about others before yourself, seeing the big picture. That's everybody should have that sort of approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that with the little business that I have, and having a leadership role is something that I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Is that people will follow your example and they'll work as hard. They'll work like 10% of what you work.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want them to work a lot,
Yeah.
you have to work like 900 more percent.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
That math was weird.
Obviously I study business. That's my major is
Yeah.
business and economics.
Yeah.
So like we talked about the fact that a lot of times like your most successful business leaders, like when they interviewed them, their personality types tend to be more extroverted. They're really good with people.
Yeah.
And they normally are hard workers. They set the tone for their business, and that's why they were successful.
Yeah.
They got people to trust them, and they were able to establish a community of people that could focus on their goal and be like, we are behind you.
Mm-hmm. And I don't, and whoever works under me, I wanted to make it clear to them that they won't, I'm for them and they won't work as hard as me. I'm willing to work 10 times as hard as them
Mm-hmm.
and just be there for them. And that's something our youth group is talking about though, is like different roles. And I'm starting to appreciate the leaders in my life,
Mm-hmm.
the roles, the leadership roles in my life, because like sometimes leadership sucks. But in those moments, those crucial moments,
Yep.
when you can turn to somebody and throw it on them, just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the little moments that I've had it, I was like, wow, now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I get what it takes to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the tragedies with police officers and stuff like that.
That's a whole nother topic right there.
Yeah,
But
that's another can of worms. But when in regards to the business side of things, is like owning it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it boils down to, is just owning, whether that's your product, what you're releasing,
Yep.
owning the people that work for you, owning your audience. Because that's another thing Hollywood doesn't do. They don't care about
Yeah.
their audience. They just care about
The bottom line.
buffing themselves up. Yeah. Or puffing themselves up, giving themselves Oscars and
Dude, the
whatnot.
Oscars is hilarious, but
Yeah.
I remember I watched the one and I was like, every time someone has to give a political speech, they can't just accept the reward and be like, thank you. It's like, oh, I'm gonna give a long-winded speech about my political belief.
Yeah. The funniest part for me though is whoever does the camera work, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
They're so good at their job. The cutaways are so good. I wish I could be on that team. It's so awesome. And it's like, the Golden Globes with Ricky Gervais.
Yep.
So awesome what Ricky Gervais does.
Dude,
And
that was
I have,
funny.
yeah, I know. I have this image in my head of Ricky Gervais like coordinating with the film director. He's
Yeah.
just like, okay, at this point I'm gonna talk about Tom Hanks. Make sure you cut to Tom Hanks. I love Tom Hanks though.
Mhm.
I shouldn't be talking crap about it.
And I mean, yeah, I just find the Golden Globes and Oscars and stuff interesting because they also added a lot more rules of how you can get actually nominated for their rewards.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And so like movies, I know movies like 1918 that was released a couple years
Oh,
ago
that's
couldn't make it because it didn't have enough racially diverse cast.
Yeah, and back to your question about like what I would change about Hollywood is I'm not gonna seek out having diversity in my cast and crew. I'm gonna hire who fits the role.
Yeah.
And that's another thing Hollywood's shooting themselves in the foot. They hire somebody just because of their ethnicity or sexual orientation, and then they lose the role.
Yeah.
I mean, it ruins the film. You know, it's like we hired an African American director, even though Spielberg would have been better. You
Yeah.
know, but that's another thing. And Hollywood's actually shooting themselves in the foot again. It's because we'll do that. We'll hire people who fit the role properly.
Mm-hmm. And that's why 10 years down the road, Recognized Productions will be the only production people in
Yeah, I wish. I hope. I don't know. See, this is a social experiment. We're
Yeah.
gonna find out if people do want truth.
I think like this is kind of like just correlating both of us here. Like me starting my own like the world thing and
Mhm,
doing that.
mhm.
It's kind of like the same thing. Like I'm gonna
You're
create
an arsonist, like the world.
I'm gonna-
That was a Anyway.
I'm gonna create a platform that there's open forum for truth, open forum for discussion. Because like I'm gonna talk about my beliefs, but I'm also gonna look at different perspectives. And like
Yeah.
same thing with you. For your movies, you're gonna try to present
Yes.
truth.
Yeah.
And the question for both of us is the world ready? Is there a market for it?
It's hard. I mean, George Orwell said that the further society gets away from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it.
Yeah.
Dude, Orwell, he's calling it all. He called it.
Man.
Like I wish he could just come to the future and he'd be like, "Told you so."
Told you so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's true. Is like if we try to tell truth and it looks like the society doesn't care about truth. It's all about ourselves.
I mean, content's king, marketing's queen. Then.
Mm.
So
I like that.
So yeah,
I like
but
that.
hopefully the world wants truth. Hopefully you guys can succeed.
Yeah, I think some of the world wants truth. Some of the world, and so and even if it's that small audience and they can benefit from it, and the cool thing is like that. I had a thing that I wrote down that I wanted to say. Where was it? Oh yeah, this is something that I thought of the other day. Was telling stories is how you get ideas, and ideas change people who change the world. And so that's what movies do. They tell stories, and those stories are telling ideas, and they affect it. And I think that that's something awesome. Some other little kid can be impacted, and maybe that kid will do something great. And that's the other thing with my podcast, The Outlook, is looking outside yourself, seeing the bigger picture, and understanding that the world does not revolve around you and how you perceive things and your ideas. Instead, it's bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you approach life like that, life will be more meaningful. You'll be more happy.
Yeah.
And so
nice. Well, we should probably be wrapping up here.
Yeah.
You got any last words you want to say or anything?
No, it's been an honor. And you guys can check out. I'm gonna interview you in a bit. You guys can check out The Outlook, and you can see him and other people that I've been getting to talk with. Stay tuned for future Recognize productions. And it's been an honor, man. Love talking with you.
All right. Well, that was the interview with my friend here, Vanya. Check out his stuff. You can check out Recognize Productions and check out his podcast, The Outlook. And if you want to stay up to me, again, subscribe. Check out my stuff at Instagram and Twitter, ltworld.info. And now, please, friends, go out there and light the world.